Welcome to Football Today. I'm your host, Bobby Skinner, here with my co-host, Justin Penik, December 25th, 2024. Hope everyone's having a wonderful Wednesday. And of course, because it's Wednesday, we are having a show. We're doing our awards for the season, and we're going to get really creative. We're going to do MVP. We're going to do Offensive Defensive Player of the Year, Offensive Rookie of the Year, Defensive Rookie of the Year, and Coach of the Year. And no one cares about Comeback Player of the Year because it's a fraudulent award, and they've changed the rules completely. Justin, how are you?
I'm good, Bobby Skinner. I'm very, very good. Happy Wednesday to everybody that celebrates this Wednesday. Kind of did the math. We're like, oh, well, coaches are going to start to get fired, and it's going to be the end of the season, so we're not actually sure if we're actually going to have like a formal show where we get to give our end-of-season award ballot, and I kind of feel a little dirty because a lot of these awards, at least MVP, I think, is still
MVP is going to come down to the stretch.
It is going to come
wire.
down to the stretch, so I kind of feel bad putting our flag in the sand, so to speak, what we say over here. I kind of feel bad, but we got to do it. Let's do it.
Yeah, also the NFL has really screwed up their awards thing by putting it the night before the Super Bowl. So it's like you don't even give talk shows like a day to talk about it was a perfect midweek of the playoffs. We can talk about MVP and stuff, and then they're like, you know what we should do? We should put it on Saturday night. There's no shows before the Super Bowl, and guess what we're talking about the next day? The Super Bowl. Not the awards. Great job, NFL. You really have done a good job with this. But I think MVP is probably one of the most interesting MVP races in a long time, Justin. And let's start there. MVP of the NFL. I think people are arguing too. I think it can become a three-man race depending on how the quarterbacks do and if Saquon Barkley breaks the all-time rushing record. But it's really between Saquon Barkley, Lamar Jackson, and Josh Allen. And who are you going?
Now I have a hope, and I have a big speech that I want to go on, but I'm not going to do that yet because I have to pick one. Lamar Jackson.
Okay, thank you. Can I say something? People who say Josh Allen are just wrong.
Josh Allen has less to work with, but still, like...
But let's stop acting like the Ravens are just, the super team. Like, the receivers are Zay Flowers and Mark Andrews, who has not been the same version of himself.
They're not, no.
Like, let's stop acting. And if it was close. Lamar has 200 more passing yards than Josh Allen. He has 12 more passing touchdowns at 37 compared to Josh Allen's 26. He has 2 less interceptions, which is why, Josh Allen's kind of finally in this, is because, he has those. And by the way, Josh Allen was my preseason MVP pick. Lamar has 250 more rushing yards. The only stat that Josh Allen has is the 11 rushing touchdowns, right, while Lamar has 3. And you're like, oh, well, Derrick Henry in the run game. Okay, well, I mean, James Cook is... he's a 1,000-yard back. He was 3rd in rushing last year. Mm-hmm. He just doesn't get the short yardage yards that Josh Allen ends up getting, that Lamar's getting. So I want to talk about Lamar versus Saquon and all of this, but I think the main thing we need to talk about is Lamar versus Josh Allen. I think if you are voting for Josh Allen, I think you are simply wrong, and you don't want to give. You'd rather give Josh Allen his first MVP than Lamar his 3rd and a back-to-back. I think you're bored with Lamar if you're not giving Lamar Jackson the MVP award. If you want to talk to me about, like, all the arguments, like you said, are not about, like, what they're actually doing on the field. Like, well, he doesn't have as much to work with. And the fact that the Bills have 3 losses and the Ravens have 5.
I'm not as strong. I think Lamar deserves it more. I think Lamar's had a better year. But I'm not as strong saying you're wrong. Can I tell you my hope?
Have to be better in one statistical category, like touchdowns, interceptions, or yards.
I will say, and I agree with you, but I will say, Josh Allen is leading the league in EPA per play, and he is leading it by a somewhat good margin. He's the only guy with the point whose EPA per play starts with 0.3. Everybody else starts with 0.2. And MVP has typically been an EPA per play like award, at least the last couple years. And I don't know if that includes last year, because last year was just weird. They had to give it to somebody last year, which Lamar deserved it last year too.
But it should be a total EPA, not a EPA per play.
That's okay. That's good. I could even check on that, maybe. But
and maybe Josh Allen's ahead of him. But
I'm going to tell you my wish. We don't have total EPA. ESPN does that if you want to look into that. I hope they split it.
I have not happened that since Peyton Manning, Steve McNair.
I feel dirty trying to say, like, definitively Lamar Jackson has been better than Josh Allen, or definitively Josh Allen's been better than Lamar. I think they both deserve it. Part of me hopes if there's 50 writers, 10 votes goes to Saquon, 20 goes to Allen, 20 goes to Lamar. That's my hope.
So it'd be very hard for that to happen.
It would be hard.
I'm shocked that it's even happened once with Peyton Manning and Steve McNair. But we got to talk about Saquon in this too.
Yes.
Now, here's the issue, is that the V in MVP, I feel like, ruins some people. And I understand if you want to argue by the letter of the law, but what is more valuable, the quarterback or the running back? Fine. But you know what? This is the NFL. And to me, we give running backs the MVP when they get very close or break all-time rushing records. You know, when Adrian Peterson, came 8 yards short of Eric Dickerson's record in 2012, we gave him the record. When LaDainian Tomlinson broke the touchdown record in 2006, we gave him the MVP. When Sean Alexander did in 2005, we gave him the MVP. Saquon Barkley right now is on pace to miss it by 22 yards, and I know you could talk about the extra game in there, but in reality, like, we just have to start. That's, we can't
it's the new NFL.
Yeah, we can't do that for everything. For a long time it was 14 games, and then they went to 16. Right, that's a bigger gap. So we didn't not celebrate those records.
Yeah, and if you want to compare records, it's Eric Dickerson has 131 yards per game. Saquon Barkley, as of now, has 122 yards per game. Insane.
So there's a legit like reason why to give him. And I'm sorry, you want to argue me about the whole value thing? Fine, have at it. Guess what? What I'm not going to do is I'm not just going to eliminate every single position from this. I will put running backs in here. Do you think that there can be enough for Saquon and people going back and forth on Lamar and Allen where that splits some of the votes and Saquon ends up getting this thing? Because
no.
I'm not going to sit here and I'll tell you how strong. Here's what I'll say. Right now, I will say Lamar Jackson. If Saquon breaks Eric Dickerson's rushing record, I would vote for Saquon.
Yeah, I think he is going to fall just short. I think that Steelers game kind of got him.
Right now, he's on pace to miss it by 22 yards, but he's also playing the Cowboys and the Giants, which
very bad run defenses.
I bet you kind of wish he didn't go out, in that Giants game earlier in the year, because that would help him out.
Here's how I think the Saquon impact is going to hurt somebody. I think it's going to help Josh Allen. I think because you're going to have some people that, even if they think Lamar deserves it, there's going to be maybe some people out there that don't want to give it to Lamar back to back, and for his third time is going to vote Saquon, and then I think that's going to actually help put Josh Allen over the edge.
Man, I would love to flex the fact that I got my MVP pick right with Josh Allen.
Yeah.
But I just don't think he's deserving. To me, he's right now he's third place.
And so I checked in on total EPA. Do you know who's number one in the NFL in total EPA right now?
It's Allen, and then Lamar's 0.2 behind him, right?
Total. Well, again, everybody maybe calculates it differently. You shouldn't calculate EPA differently.
Yeah, there's no way you calculate that differently.
Total EPA. Lamar is number 3. Josh Allen is number 2, and this
Joe Burrow's number 1.
Joe Burrow's number 1. Which Joe Burrow is also should low key be in this mix.
Yeah,
but he's not.
And that's where I'll concede. When it's we'll talk about the win. If you have a losing record, you can't be in the MVP award race. That's just the reality of it. But Joe Burrow does belong in the conversation somewhat.
Yeah.
But the idea of Josh Allen has less to work with. It's what? I'm sorry. I'm having Rashad Bateman as your number 2 wide receiver is not some situation where it harms you when it comes to award season. If you want to talk about oh, well, this team, Joe Burrow having, if this was Joe Burrow, you're talking about having Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and all that, maybe. But like the Ravens O-line is not an advantage.
No.
Like they're not a good pass blocking unit. Like they have like negatives on that offensive line. So like, again, people get bored with like Lamar's rush. If Lamar was dropped into the NFL this year and he had this season, I don't think it'd be. Do you think it'd be an argument if Lamar had never won an MVP? Do you think Lamar would be like the clear-cut MVP favorite right now?
Oh, yes. But because he won it last year.
Which is bullshit. It's bullshit. Yeah.
No, but what Lamar's doing is it's out of this fucking world. Out of this world, man. With the pet. Like, we thought what he did, me even last year, it's like,
last year was one of the worst statistical MVPs.
But there was a big talking point that I had last year, and I remember Ben Solak had it last year of like, stats can't properly measure Lamar's impact. And he crumbled that talking point up this year, threw it to the side, and it's like, yeah, I'm gonna do what I do in terms of running the ball and being valuable and being dangerous to defenses, and I'm gonna bring the passing stats with me this year. And I'm gonna do that. And no, I never thought that Lamar would be this good of a passer in terms of the advanced numbers to kind of follow him. I knew that he's good and know that he can be like this top 3 QB in the NFL even without these passing numbers. But the fact that he has these passing numbers now backing him up is nuts, man. It's nuts.
Yeah, and to me, but here's my thing: is Lamar beat Josh Allen this year. If you want to talk about the win-loss part of this, like, again, so I'm not going to let the difference between 10-5 and 12-3. Like, well, that gives this guy the edge, even though he's worse in every statistical category.
Saquon Barkley also technically beat Derrick Henry.
There you go. That should not be play too much of a part of it. All right,
it should not.
So official, you are Lamar. I'm going to say Lamar right now, but I'm just telling you right now. If Saquon gets within 10 rushing yards of Eric Dickerson and 2 more touchdowns, it goes him. And if he breaks the Eric Dickerson rushing record and he doesn't win MVP, I'll be outraged.
267 yards over the next 2 games. That's 133.5.
Yeah, very doable for him. I mean, that's just average 12 more yards per game than what he's averaging against 2 bad run defenses with the Cowboys and Giants too.
And especially if Jalen Hurts is out, they will just be giving him the ball.
Yeah, and he won't, And here's the other thing is, like, you want to talk about, like, being hurt by, like, Saquon should have, like, on any other team, he'd have, like, 8 more touchdowns, but Jalen Hurts gets the 1-yard touchdowns on that team.
This is true.
All right, Offensive Player of the Year. This is probably a little less thrilling because we're talking about this guy in MVP. It's Saquon Barkley, correct?
Yeah.
This was once a conversation with Derrick Henry. Henry does have the same yards per carry, just has 2 less carries per game than him. Both 13 rushing touchdowns, but Saquon, like you said, have a little more. I think Jamar Chase, is a fun year. I think he could have gotten on any other year. 1,500 receiving yards, 16 touchdowns. That's 130 more yards than second place, and Justin Jefferson has 4 more touchdowns than Terry McLaurin with 12 and second place. But Saquon, he's gonna get to 2,000. He gets Offensive Player of the Year. It's probably pretty simple, right?
Yeah. Just based on that. I mean, Henry is better in terms of the yards after contact. He's broken more tackles, but there's just no arguing. There's no arguing what Saquon Barkley's done. Saquon's also played a lot more than Derrick Henry too. If I were to tell you the percentage of available offensive snaps, Derrick Henry, I think this is right.
Yeah, they don't use Henry in the receiving game at all.
55.8% of the offensive snaps for Derrick Henry versus Saquon Barkley, 73.4%. So that's kind of shocking. But Saquon deserves it. I mean, there's no ifs, ands, or buts that you can come with.
Why don't you talk to us about something, Justin, before we talk about Defensive Player of the Year?
I will. Today's episode is sponsored by DraftKings. Grab your favorite team's jersey and some snacks and head to the couch for another Sunday or even midweek of action-packed football, midweek action. Get excited for that. Get even closer to the action each Sunday with our partners at the DraftKings Sportsbook. Right now, all new customers who bet just $5, you're going to get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins. When you use our code FOOTBALL today, Stay in on the action. Use your $150 in bonus bets on DraftKings same-game parlays. First shot at an even bigger payout. And if sports betting is not yet available in your state, don't worry. You can still join in on all the fun with DraftKings Daily Fantasy and have a shot to win cash prizes. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app right now. New customers use our promo code football today. All one word. Bet $5 on any wager. Get $150 of bonus bets if your bet wins. That's promo code football today only at the DraftKings Sportsbook. You will be glad you did.
You'll be glad you did. Defensive Player of the Year, man. There's no clear-cut guy here. Right? Because all the guys, all the pass rushers are similar in the sack totals. And even there's like not big discrepancies in tackles for loss. I'm going Myles Garrett again, though.
Okay.
He's second in sacks behind Trey Hendrickson by 1 or 1.5, I believe. He's first in tackles for loss, tied with TJ Watt. He has the most total pressure for, sacks, hits, and pressures for edge, only one behind Chris Jones, who's a defensive tackle. Number 1 in pass rush win rate. This is an edge award. I don't think there's any corners who are making a play at it this year. I know
Kirby Joseph.
Xavier McKinney. I'd take McKinney over Kirby Joseph in this. I'm going Myles Garrett. Do you think he's going to get it though? Because he's on the Cleveland Browns.
No, I think it's going to go to T.J. Watt again, and I don't even think that because T.J. Watt's on the Steelers. I think T.J. Watt deserves it because of what he does as a run defender. Not to say that Myles Garrett's a bad run defender. I just think T.J. Watt is an incredible.
I think Myles Garrett's a better run defender.
Really?
Myles Garrett gets the tackles for losses without doing the work outside in type stuff. He just sets the edge and still gets those tackles for a loss. I
think average depth of tackle, like again, I'm going off of some numbers, which it's tough to give numbers for run defense. I definitely think that's more of a film. It's more of a film like, hey, is this guy, can he set an edge? Is he stronger? You need to watch that type of shit. And I'm not watching any of these guys like down in, down out to say who's actually better. But I know average depth of tackle, TJ Watt gets the edge. I know run stop rate, I think TJ Watt gets the edge and shit like that. So I know TJ Watt leads in more forced fumbles. So that's, as a pass rusher, plus you can force a fumble as a run defender too. So that's why I would give it to TJ Watt, just because I think overall more complete. However, like there are guys that are legitimately better pass rushers than TJ Watt though, because TJ Watt, one of the critiques that he's had as the years have gone on is guys like Myles Garrett, Hendrickson. There's a good amount of guys in the league that are better at getting pressure than TJ Watt, but TJ Watt is just such a good finisher. He finishes every year. Every year.
Yeah, and if he had a 3-sack lead on them, then I'd say, yeah, like this is defensive player of the year is kind of like sacks matter more than total pressure.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, Myles Garrett has more sacks. And if we're talking about total pressure, let's see, where's Myles Garrett's first for edges.
Yeah, you gotta because Watt
TJ
doesn't have
Watt
the hurries.
is 24th.
Yeah, he doesn't have the hurries.
He's 24th. Pass rush win rate of Myles Garrett 11% better. Pressure percentage, he's 4% better. Again, I don't get voter fatigue. I'm giving it to Myles Garrett. And I actually think Andrew Van Ginkel has a better case this year than TJ Watt. He's top 5 in sacks and tackles for a loss. He has interceptions that have turned into touchdowns. Or at least one. I think both his interceptions went for touchdowns. One on Daniel Jones, one on Aaron Rodgers in the London game. So, and then McKinney's in there too, but
no Trey Hendrickson?
No, Trey Hendrickson is in there with those 3. What I'm saying is if people just edge versus edge, I'm taking Myles Garrett. And then Andrew Van Ginkel, I think the 2 interceptions while being top 5, that can be a differentiator for him, where I don't think there's a differentiator between Hendrickson and Garrett. And then McKinney, I think if McKinney had 3 interceptions in the last 2 games and you get double-digit interceptions, I think you could give it to him. But in reality, it's just so hard for a DB and especially a safety to get this award.
Yeah. Yeah, I still give the edge to Watt, though.
Yeah, I'm going Myles Garrett. All right, okay. Time for Offensive Rookie of the Year. So, some would say this is easy, and it is easy to predict who it's going to be, Justin, because Jaden Daniels is going to win Offensive Rookie of the Year.
Mm-hmm.
I have not made my final decision on what I'm going to say on this, because Jaden Daniels has had a phenomenal season. He has 3,300 passing yards, 22 passing touchdowns, 8 interceptions. He has 737 rushing yards and 7 touchdowns. Brock Bowers is either going to have the second best tight end rookie year ever, which it will be the second best. Mike Ditka's is better, but he played less games. But so he's going to have the second best tight end receiving season ever. He's 8th in receiving yards for the entire NFL. He's 2nd in catches. Like, he's setting records, Justin, and I feel like that should matter. And this is not, it's Offensive Rookie of the Year. It's not most valuable, right? So you don't get to play that same argument that you do with the MVP position. But here's the reason why I'm going to go Jaden Daniels, Justin, is because he has 737 rushing yards. Like, that is not a small number. He's 14th in rushing yards this year for all the NFL. He's 10th in touchdowns. And even just looking at rookies, right? Like, he has 120 less rushing yards than Bucky Irving, who's the most for rookie running backs. And he has more than Tyrone Tracy, who's 2nd for rookie running backs. So, if he had like a 400 to 500 yard rushing season, Jaden Daniels, that'd be really good. Be like top 3 for quarterbacks. But having that much, to me, makes me say Jaden Daniels. I'm telling you, if it was 200, 300 yards lower, which is a lot of yards, I would be going Brock Bowers because of what he's doing. But at the end of the day, I got to go Jaden Daniels.
Yeah, Jaden Daniels is going to finish with over 30 total touchdowns on the year. He has 22 passing. He has 6 rushing right now, so you think he's going to finish with more than 2 through the final 2 games of the season. Interception rate is low enough for a rookie that you can really live with. If he's going to finish the year with below 10, then that's solid. He has 8 right now, close to a 70% completion rate. But I mean, you do look at Brock Bowers' line, and the fact that this 101 reception, 137 target, 1,067 yards, the fact that that's the only line on his Pro Football Reference page right now, and there's more to come.
It's amazing.
It is incredible. Like, it's one of the best seasons that we've ever seen from a tight end. Now, my only question is, this is kind of like an asshole question. If the Raiders get better, and that's an if the Raiders get better and if they add more targets, is that production always going to be there? Probably not. And is that a referendum on Brock Bowers as a player? But regardless, that's not...
Sure, at the same time, their passing offense is terrible. You know what I'm saying? So, like, yeah, will he get the same target share? No, but I think he'll be cracking 1,000 plus every single season. Like, he's a special player.
But that also shouldn't impact Rookie of the Year voting. Like, no, that question should not.
No. Now, I will say, I was on the Brock Bowers train until Jaden Daniels had 5 passing touchdowns versus the Eagles.
Yeah.
Because I just think there's moments. Then I'm arguing like the passing touchdowns are too low to put him over a historic tight end rookie season. But getting to that 22, like I said, it's not great. You know, he's like I said, he's 10th in passing touchdowns this year, 14th in passing yards. Like those are good, not great. Where Brock Bowers' numbers are great, just next to his peers at his position, and not just rookies. But at the end of the day, I just think the rushing yards for Jaden Daniels puts him as the clear winner here.
Yeah, and I also think there's moments for Jaden Daniels, right? Like
with Bowers, there's none.
Yeah, like what's going to be the highlight reel, man? That you're going to show that Saturday night, the award show, just Brock Bowers catching a bunch of balls. You know what I mean? But Jaden Daniels, there's the Eagles game, there's the Hail Mary, there's the Bengals game where he's making some of those magic deep throws. So there's moments with Jaden Daniels, and then if he even goes on maybe even a little bit of a playoff run, and depending on how they do. If for Brock Bowers, it's just, man, look at this guy catching the ball. Which it's not a shot at Bowers. It's just Daniels has had more of those moments. The team has won a little bit, so it's going to be just sexier to give it to him.
If Bowers had like 8 or 9 receiving touchdowns, maybe I'd still be going for him. But I go Jaden Daniels. All right, Defensive Rookie of the Year. Now, this has kind of been slam dunk all year, but I will say, Justin, Jared Verse was a slam dunk in this, and it's like Kenyon Mitchell's having a great year, but what Jared Verse is doing is different, and he plays the edge position, which gives him a little bit of an edge, no pun intended. But Jared Verse has had 0 sacks and 0 tackles for a loss in the last 6 games. Now, he still played really well. He's been disruptive. He is 4th in, for edges in the entire NFL in total sacks, hits, and pressures. Yep. He's 9th in pass rush win rate. So it's not, those 0 sacks, 0 tackles for loss are not a referendum on teams are figuring him out a little bit. It's just kind of the nature of the edge position is sometimes you will go a little bit of a dry spell on the counting stats, but are you still being disruptive? He has been. But I'm still giving Jared Verse the defensive rookie of the year over Kenyon.
I am too. But for the sake of, let's just talk about another player for the sake of talking about another player.
Here comes Chop Robinson.
God darn it. Yeah, man. Chop has played half the defensive snaps this year. I thought he was hurt. And I think he was, but maybe they were kind of holding him back. It says that he's played in 15 games. But he's only appeared in 51.2% of the defensive snaps, while Jared Verse has played 77.3%. Chop Robinson has more sacks than Jared Verse. Now, I think Jared Verse is a better run defender, and I think Chop Robinson has like an obscene 35% missed tackle rate right now. So there's issues that Chop Robinson's got to work on. I think he's got to work on balance issues. But man, is he a fun watch in terms of speed and power, and he blends the two. And offensive linemen at times are trying to chop his hands down, and he just bull rushes right into him, saying bring it on. So Chop Robinson towards the second half of this year has been really, really fun to watch. And I think Chop was hurt. I think if he didn't have that slow start or the slow injury, whatever, even if Chop Robinson has these same issues, I think he would be defensive rookie of the year just because his numbers would be better than Jared Verse. Some of the numbers are better than Jared Verse right now, and he's only basically played half the season. Yeah,
I just think Jared Verse brings you more of a run. But Kenyon Mitchell, man, he's right up there. He gave up his first touchdown this previous week, but 9 pass breakups is a lot. Now,
he's the dude, man.
No interceptions will hurt him when it comes to award season, which, even though it's not the most fair thing in the world, when we're talking about awards, cornerbacks just need to have interceptions to getting those awards.
Where did he fall?
Kenyon, I think he went what?
20
no, he went 20. Yeah, fucking motherfucker.
I mean, just the best defensive player in the draft. Maybe IMO.
Maybe we're gonna screw up the draft next year, Justin. But I feel great about our evals in this last draft cycle. Even Cam Kinchin's right. He's had an awesome year since the Rams put him in. And Jared Verse and Kenyon Mitchell were our number 1 and number 2 defensive players in the draft.
Yeah, just fell in love with them at the Senior Bowl. Fell in love.
Well, Kenyon was at the Senior Bowl, and then Jared Verse, I'm like, this guy's film is I don't know why anyone's talking about Latu over this cat.
Yeah.
And then Kenyon was just as advertised. Kenyon definitely fell in love with the Senior Bowl, where I because of his level of competition he played at Toledo, I think he may have, he went 22nd anyways, but he was talked about as a late first rounder going in, and then I thought he would have gotten into the top 12. Us as Giants fans, Justin, we said, if we trade back, my target is Kenyon Mitchell.
Mm-hmm.
All right, quickly, coach of the year, Kevin O'Connell. Team with low expectations might end up with the number 1 seed. Resurrect Sam Darnold. Getting that defense to fit Brian Flores. I think one of the underrated things is self-evaluating and knowing when to fire guys. The Vikings firing Kevin O'Connell firing their defensive coordinator is the difference between him and a guy like Shane Steichen. When you talk about all the good offensive mind stuff, can you run a team? So Kevin O'Connell is my coach of the year, but I kind of don't care about coach of the year at all.
I think Dan Quinn deserves it. Just I thought this was going to be bad. I thought Washington's they don't have talent. Their offensive line is terrible. The hire of Cliff Kingsbury was bad. That was the main reason of pessimism. Forget what they've done with the roster. Forget Dan Quinn himself. I thought the hire of Cliff Kingsbury was going to tank the Commanders. And at least in year 1, it literally has not. It has helped them rise above with their run game and how they've used Jaden Daniels and that defense being just good enough. They're not great, but I think Dan Quinn has got these guys believing, and I think that's the most important part about this. O'Connell, we knew he was a good coach, but Dan Quinn kind of coming in here second life as a head coach. I think he deserves it this year.
All right. Comeback player of the year, I'm going to go Tim Patrick. Shout out Tim Coffey.
Yeah. Okay. Yes.
We'll see you when we see you. Have a great Wednesday. Until then, this is Football Today.